Hey, welcome. My name is Farzam, and this is going to be a tutorial, should I say a quick tutorial on how to deploy your Docker app. Well, first of all, containerize it, then deploy it to AWS using ECS. I'll be also creating a second video in which I'll be adding a load balancer to my app, and if you want to do that, you can also follow that as well. And as I learn more, I'll try to create even more videos because same as you, as I'm learning, I think these videos are really useful for people like me and you who are trying to learn, and I think these are pretty straightforward. So I thought, why not share it with everyone else? Let's get started. Okay, so first things, there are a few things you need to do. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, you need to install it. Then if you don't have Docker, you need to also install that as well and make sure that it's running, which I don't have running yet, and I'll be doing myself. All right, once it's running, the first thing you need to do after that is to configure your AWS credentials. And all you need to do if you're new to AWS is enter AWS configure, and it's going to ask for your access key, secret uh, key, and your region and whatever else. Mine's already set up, so I don't need to do this. But if you do, basically what you need to do if you don't know how to do this, you need to create an IAM role and enter those credentials that you're given into here. And if that's set up, we can move on. So what's up next is you need to head over to AWS and punch in ECR, which is Elastic Container Registry. Open that up, head over there, click on Get Started, and this is going to be the address we'll be using. This is your repo, your basically ECR address from now on for this account that you're using, right? You can set whatever name you like. This I've created a simple weather app that's done using C# Web API, and it's just a simple weather template. So I'm just gonna go with that. Nothing fancy schmancy. Create repository. Cool. Easy as that. Now head over to weather. Good thing about this is it only shows you the commands you need. So you can either copy these and or you can copy them and kind of adjust them as you like to better for your needs. But these are pretty straightforward, so we can just use these for the sake of demonstration. All right. So if everything's set up, go ahead and copy this first line. So actually, let me try to give you somewhat of an explanation on each of these. So the first one is kind of well, as explained here, retrieve an authentication token and authenticate your Docker client to your registry. So this is basically the first line is kind of registering Docker and AWS to each other and saying, hey, uh, this is the account we're going to be using. Make sure that it's connected. The second line is saying this is going to be for actually building your container, which is going to be using the folder that you're in. This little bad boy here is saying um, Docker build this app, weather, and which will be from this folder. The third one is tagging it. So, and then we're going to be using this tag to push our container to this repository here. Make sense? All right, let's do it. Okay, so next step is to create the Docker file, which is going to be used to actually create this container. And to do that, you do need Visual Studio Code. Well, you don't necessarily need it, but it does help out a lot. It's going to just make everything easier for you, and it's going to set it up for you. So what you need to do is install Docker in Visual Studio Code. Mine is already installed, and then head over to the your application folder. And if you don't know how to do that, new folder, open it up, easy as that. All right. Once that's done, you head over to View, Command Palette, Docker, add Docker files to Workspace. Create that. Now, as you can see, this can be done for multiple languages. Go, Python, Java, you know, whatever your poison is. Um, this, for my application, I'm using .NET. Um, it's ASP.NET Core, so I'm going to pick that. The operating system, which you'll see later on, will be Linux. The port, which you see also later on, I'm going to be setting. The host port will be 5000. You can leave it by default as well for sake of demonstration. And you can pick no. And the reason it's saying Docker files already exist is because I didn't I created this beforehand. You shouldn't see this, but I'll press override anyway, so I'll just create new files here. So all it's going to do is create a couple files here and here. This is the main file you're looking for. So it tells it what to do, what to run on, what port, what to run, and everything else it needs to. If you need more information, you want to learn more, a quick Google search, YouTube search will bring up a lot of information. Uh, as you know, Google is your best friend, especially when it comes to coding. So once that's done, we can head back to our commands, copy the first line, and go back to Visual Studio. Paste it. So what it's going to do is going to register the Docker and AWS to each other, and if all is good, it's going to output this login succeeded. If not, most likely the issue is that your IAM role has some issues, and you know probably need to fix that to get this going. If not, whatever the issue is, whatever pops up, again, Google search is going to most likely bring up a lot of information that will help you resolve the issue. Okay, next we need to build a container. So copy this, head back. I'm going to put v1, which is for version. So here on the right side, I'm indicating what version this is. You can set anything. This could be anything customized. Could be. So for me, I'm just going to be put v1 um, and press enter. If all is good, it's going to run a bunch of stuff here and it's going to create it. Mine happened really quick because I had ran this previously, so I did it pretty good. For you, it may take a little bit more time, but that's okay. As long as at the end it says built finished and it's all good. Now that we've built the container, we can head back and tag it so then we can push it to the AWS repo. All right, so copy the third command, paste it. It's going to tag it, error respond, no weather latest. The issue is I switched latest to v1, so let's switch it here. So it's actually a good demonstration so I kind of get an idea of what's going on. So you see the container we created before was weather v1. It wasn't latest, which was the default setup command. And it's saying, okay, tag this container and it's getting tagged to this. All right, which is the repo we created. And then we can go back and push our tag. It's going to push the container to AWS. If all is good, it's gonna load a little bit and it's gonna send it there. Okay, so once it's finished, we should have a screen like this, shows the size, and we can head back actually to our repo. And if you refresh it, it'll show the size and it'll show the address. So copy the URI, save that somewhere, and let's get started. So next up is to head over to ECS and create a cluster. Remember when we're creating the operating system, ask for the operating system. Here you have the choice of Linux or Windows. So we picked Linux. I'm going to go ahead and pick that here as well. Cluster name, you can set this as whatever you like. Mine is just a simple, the default weather template that C# web API gives you. So I'm just going to set it up as that. Now to use the free tier and not be charged, make sure that you enter to T2 micro. And here I'm going to create two instances. The reason is after this video, I'll be creating another video which will be on actually adding a load balancer to our app, right? And that requires either more CPU that T2 micro instance will have, or more instances. The reason is that as this is a small instance, the resources will all the resources will be used by our app, so there'll be nothing left for the load balancer. So that's why I'm creating two instances. Otherwise, if you don't need a load balancer, you can just leave it at one. Um, and yeah, everything else you can leave it at the default. VPC pick the already default. You should have one by default created for your AWS account. Now, if you live in Canada, I wouldn't recommend picking 1D. For some reason, it doesn't create my instance when I pick 1D, so I'm going to go ahead and pick 1A and 1B. And then enable auto assign public IP. That is important. And pick the default security group as well. If this is your first time uh, using ECS, you may not have anything below this, so it'll be just on create new role, and that's fine. In fact, I can leave it on there too, but as you can see, there's two extra for me because it's already created the role that it needs. So even just for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to leave it on that. Now what's going to do is going to create our cluster for us. Okay, awesome. That's finished. Head to view cluster. Now it's going to slowly create our instances for us. If you refresh it or even head to EC2, you should see the instances initializing. It's already running, so cool. If you refresh this, I guess sometimes it takes a bit more than a second to show, but it's pretty quick. All right, so we're all good, active, running, and we're set. Next up is we actually need to create a task definition. So head over to task definitions, create a new task definition, EC2, next step. Here you can create the name is up to you. I'm gonna just put whether task, role none, and default. Pick 128, CPU, 1V CPU. All right, now here's where we're going to add our container. Now, if you remember earlier, we saved our container address, which we used to push, right? We're going to use that again here. Container is up to you. Let's do other v1. 128 and okay, so if you remember also, so the first host port can be any anything you like. Most of the times by default it's 888. You can leave it at 8, whatever you like. This is not as important, but the container port is the one you picked earlier for Docker. So make sure that you pick the same one. Um, for our demonstration purpose, we picked 5000, the default. So I'm setting that here as well. So just make sure that those two values match. Everything else you can leave by default unless you want to go ahead and customize it to your own to better fit your needs. Once that's done, click add, and here everything else you can also leave by default as well. Click create, and you just created a task. Head back to your cluster and head over to tasks, run new task. Here you pick family, should be the one task you just created. EC2 cluster is the one you just created. Number task 1, task group you can leave empty, and everything else you can leave run task. And what this is going to do is going to try and push your container you created to your instance. If all is good, it may take some time. You can refresh it, and if it says it's running, then you should be all good. Now, what you can do to check if it's all good, well, first of all, you can actually see. So here, as you can see, the available CPU for this one is full, but for this one is zero now. Reason probably is, right? This is being used. And if you actually head over to, so here saying the container instance that we're using is this one, and it's showing the resources being used. And so this has 854 megabytes left and no CPU left at all. That's what I was telling you. So earlier, it would be better if you need a load balancer to create either two instances or use or pick a better um, instance machine. So now we're all good. Let's try and see if it's actually running. We can head over to, all right, head over to EC2 instance, open it in a new tab, click on instance ID, and head over to networking. Now, for some reason, if I try to open this directly with a link, it doesn't work. I don't know why. But if I actually copy and paste this address, so make sure you put your port that you picked just moments ago. If you remember, we picked the port as 8888 and the host port was 5000, right? That port needs to be entered here, and then the path of your app that returns some data. See if it's actually running. Um, Enter that. If it's all good, it should return some data. And now our app is fully running on AWS, and it was as easy as that. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested to learn how to add the load balancer to your app, then watch the next video. Thanks.